Right, hi guys, it's Nathan, and we're back with another YouTube video, the Service Company Creator. So what we're going to go through in this video is the 9 to 5 exit plan, simply how to build freedom with a boring business. We're going to run through kind of the 9 to 5 trap, which obviously a lot of you are going to understand anyway, and if you know my background where I was in the 9 to 5. The only real escape route, which I believe is actually starting a real business these days. The setup framework with how we operate these businesses, essentially the money in the bank system. So this is beginning to build out that 9 to 5 exit plan. And then scaling to a minimum of £5 a month in recurring revenue and profit in order to actually replace your income, subject to obviously what your income looks like, of course. If you need to go beyond that or 2 to 3K months, again, if we can kind of set a target of £5 a month, then that's a solid target to start with. So the 9 to 5 trap is obviously something, if you don't know my background, I worked for Barristers Clerk for 11 years. And, you know, I always had that kind of illusion of security. My job had capped income, even when you got to a kind of a senior clerk or, you know, a CEO level. The income was still always capped. And don't get me wrong, it was good money, but it was one of those ones where you had to be in the industry 30, 40 years, and you start seeing the older generation when you get to that point. You're a CEO and you're 50, 60 years old on the verge of retirement, and yeah, you're doing over 100 grand, but there's real zero scalability at the lower level. And I just didn't want that capped income. You know, I always had that entrepreneur's mindset, and everything that kind of come along with the pain points of the 9 to 5 as well. Simply trading time for money, my boss controlling my freedom. You know, I work to a set schedule. And, you know, I had to put in a holiday request with 4 weeks notice. I was limited at 20 days holiday plus bank holidays, but still 20 days off a year. Like, I just couldn't even imagine that now. I have so much freedom in my businesses that allows me to take time off whenever I want, be present for my children, be present for myself. That was always one thing that I really hated, like having, you know, my schedule dictated to me, and expected to then go out after hours and do more work, develop business and things like that as well, which I'm sure some of you will experience, are experiencing. The thing with the 9 to 5 trap is that it can feel safe, but you know that you've also got to look at inflation. There could be a layoff, and you can also deal with burnout. Again, something that I experienced, and I've seen it so much in different industries. I was only talking to a stockbroker the other day. He said he does pretty well, has a good commission structure. Well, I say a good commission structure is on 1%, and the amount of money that he brought in was a lot. But recipe for burnout because of the hours that they were putting in, and you know I could relate to that because the hours that we were expected to do in general throughout the working day, and like I say, then go out and develop business, attend events and things like that as well. And it is just a massive recipe for burnout. So if you can control your own schedule, control your own time, have your own holidays when you want to, respect your boundaries in your new business, we can avoid the burnout. So the only real escape route, I believe, is starting a real business, a business that can actually replace your income. Not just one of these side hustle gimmicks, affiliate marketing or something like that, when yeah, you might be able to nick 500 or £1,000 a month, but if your goal is to have the freedom that comes along with being your own boss, then start a real business. You've heard me go on about this so many times, and it always makes me die when someone says, no, I'm going to go and try affiliate marketing for a bit. And my answer is good luck, all the best. So the way that the remote business model works, and I'll break this down exactly, but basically we're setting out an online setup framework, we're building the right infrastructure into the business, we're generating leads, we're passing them on to contractors, then obviously getting everything agreed with the client, and then we're dealing with the profits. That's a very simple workflow in a business that doesn't have to be overcomplicated. You don't need to be doing the work yourself. We get contractors to deliver it, you handle the pricing, and obviously communications, quality control with the clients. Now pricing, just touching on that, that is something that I really have to hold my clients' hands with, because I want you to ascertain your own profit margin on these jobs in order to make your business grow a hell of a lot quicker, instead of, you know, kind of applying 10% across the board or 20%. And even though, yeah, you probably have a profitable business, the margins wouldn't be amazing. And it would be more boring than a boring business. We want to be able to, really push the boundaries on that markup without ripping people off. That's kind of the best way to look at it. We still want to remain competitive in the market and try and get as close to retail as possible. But I also want you to be as profitable as quickly as possible. So there's a way that I have to do that with pricing. Real business, the model is a 100% a real business. You can have Bob down the road jet washing someone's driveway and it's your job. We can go and see the job. We actually know it's working. Real business, real work, real invoices, recurring revenue clients, and it's completely scalable. Now the scalable side of things will come at a later date, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. Initially, it's about getting the right infrastructure into the business, giving you that momentum into the business, making sure that we're profitable, we've got our good leads, we've got a good sales process that we're starting to build out, good contractors that we're starting to build out as well, onboarding more and more clients, and we get the recurring revenue clients with commercial work and things like that as well, and just keep banking that profit until we begin to expand and scale. So essentially how we set this up is with a setup framework that we recommend allocating 2 to 3 hours per day to the setup framework. You can even run this business on 2 to 3 hours per day. It's all subject to what you want to do. You will see so many online gurus with this hustle and grind mentality. And firstly, I'm not a flipping guru. I don't ever want to be branded with that name. I have a business model that works and I'm happy to teach it. Simple as that. When you're operating a business at kind of 2 to 3 hours per day and you're running it alongside a 9 to 5, you have to be realistic about the timeline that you can replace your income in. Now, if your income is £5,000, we see an average client do that in 4 to 6 months. And then we want obviously the recurring side of things to make sure you can replace your income, go full time on the business. If you're going to tell me that you need to replace a £20,000 a month income, then we need a different structure in place. And I'm going to tell you, you're not going to do that overnight. There has to be the right infrastructure and then be able to scale accordingly. So using 2 to 3 hours per day avoids burnout. We don't have to kind of overcomplicate anything. We make it feel really, really simple and easy, especially with the setup phase. And then even managing the jobs and leads until we get to that position where you can replace your income. There's no reason why you can't structure it around that. I'm a really, really big fan of respecting your boundaries in business. And I'll be honest with you, that took me a good few years to learn because, as you know, I did do the hustle and grind mentality in the early stages. So we set up a Google My Business profile and then we begin to start the sales process. Now, the sales process, we focus on local services ads to start with, and we can expand on that sales process at an early stage as well by just adding in additional sales strategies. LSA is just a really, really simple way of being able to generate inbound lead flow into the business and start building out that sales process. The perfect sales process goes round and round like that, and it never stops. If we can have inbound lead flow at the first stage of that process, it makes it feel really, really easy. So then we're moving on to contractor onboarding. So we're finding and sourcing contractors specifically for the services that are now in your new business. And we have a way of utilizing those contractors at the early stages to make sure that we are finding contractors that are going to be a good fit for you. You may speak to contractors and you think, not a fan. I was going to use a word there, but we'll try and avoid it for YouTube. But you might just think, I don't want to work with this person. And that's fine. There are plenty more contractors out there for you to utilize. So we move on to a contractor onboarding process. That includes onboarding them with the right contracts as well, put a specific contract in place, which I'll break down in a minute, and making sure they are going to be a good fit for your business, and obviously they can get the work done as well. Now, like I said, these services that we utilize at the early stages of the business are not complicated. If we're going back to jet washing someone's driveway, well, we need a jet wash, possibly some chemicals, simply someone that knows how to get the job done. It's not overly complicated. So don't overcomplicate the business. Simple as that. So then we're moving on to quoting and pricing. Pricing I've spoken about. We need to have that hand-holding process with you to get you to a number of different factors on the job. And then we focus on margin first pricing. So we're always going to understand our margin that we're going to make to make sure that we are going to be profitable. And I focus profits on every single job, because then in turn, naturally, the business will be 100% profitable. On average, we want you to do a £2,000 to £3,000 profit in 6 weeks. Now, all that does, I know we're not talking a lot of money here, right? I'm well aware of that, but I hope you understand by now, if you've seen me online for a long time, that I'm very transparent about how these businesses operate. If you want to go and do £20,000 in your first 6 weeks, by all means be my guest. You will be working hard. Full transparency, you will be working very hard. I've seen it done, it can be done. But realistically, on a 2 to 3 hour framework, £2,000 to £3,000 net profit in the business in 6 weeks, what that does is give you belief in your business. It gives you momentum. We're also building up cash flow into the business, which moves me nicely onto the money in the bank system. So money in the bank is one of the most important stages of a startup business. Okay, we build up capital in the bank. That capital allows us to do so much more in expanding the sales process, implementing systems, and obviously getting to a point that we begin to take a salary from the business as well. So, like I said here, we're building capital in the bank in order to scale the business now even further. We don't pay contractors until you've been paid by the client. That's a way that we manage quality control and cash flow. So cash flow is king. You've probably heard that before. And cash flow generally is king, especially in a startup business or really any business moving forward. So we have the option not to pay contractors until you've been paid by the client. That allows for a really good cash flow in the business. We come back to our margin first, so we know exactly what margin we're making off that job. And then we pay the contractor. Exactly how I operate my business to this day. It's simple, it's fast, it gives you good cash flow, and it also allows for quality control as well. Okay, we can also do a deposit structure, which just means faster cash flow basically. So some jobs, and I don't recommend this on all jobs, it just depends on the certain job basically. If it's a new client or something like that, for example, we can do a down payment deposit. Now, in some cases, subject to the size of the job, you can literally do the contractor cost as the deposit. So if I had a 4-bedroom end of tenancy and the contractor cost was £350, I could say it's a £350 deposit, and then we take the final payment once the client is 100% happy with everything, and then invoice for the final amount at the end. So it's just another way to kind of build up cash flow into the business really, really quickly, basically. These businesses are amazing for cash flow, especially when you're running it with this model. Because if you're doing that separately, and you start getting into the bigger work, if you know about my some of my larger projects, the London Mayor's office, for example, ended up being roughly £35,000. I had a subcontract on it for about 16,500, I think it was in the end. If I paid out 16.5 grand out my business account without having anything coming in, the job itself took, I think, just over a month. That's suddenly a big dip in my cash flow for that month. So being able to kind of do it with that structure just makes a big difference, and the quality control is amazing when the contractors know they're not getting paid unless that client is 100% happy with absolutely everything. So that's the money in the bank system in order to scale the business and get you to this point where we look to scale 5k recurring revenue in net profit in order to replace your income. So when we're at this point, we're going to be kind of targeting recurring contracts. That's a really good target audience. Now we can even niche this audience down even more. Commercial cleaning, grounds maintenance, so on and so forth. But even commercial cleaning, that's too wide of an audience. We need to come up with a specific audience, which is something that obviously we help you do. We really fine tune this. So, so for example, you're targeting school cleaning in London, for example. Then we need a sales strategy in place in order to add into our sales process to then expand and start targeting that niche audience. You can also, at this point, hire a VA to remove you again out of an additional stage of the workflow. Now, if you onboard a virtual receptionist at the early stages to take the initial lead inquiries, then you're out the first stage of the workflow being a receptionist. If we onboard a VA to then deal with the lead to contractor, again, we're moving ourselves out another stage of the workflow to continue working on the business. And working on the business, as you know, means that you can scale the business. So you're not working in it all the time. So again, at this point, we will be looking to expand on the sales process even further. You can reinvest into something like a pay-per-click campaign where we target a specific niche audience. This is about scaling. If we're at this point, we're kind of getting to that $5,000 a month consistently. Some guys are going to be happy with that. I'll be straight with you. But I've also got clients that want to do 50 grand a month. And there's a very, very set structure on how you're going to do that. And it involves more of the same, but most importantly, expanding on the sales process, branching out locations, onboarding new contractors, adding in new services into the business. And doubling down on what's working is really, really important, but we can also look at expansion as well. And then what we want to be looking at is simply building repeatable monthly income in order to then replace your income. So if we can consistently generate $5,000 a month in net profit over the course of a 3-month time frame, I'm going to tell you that you're in a really, really good position to hand your notice in and go full time on that business. And I can tell you now that is one of the best feelings in the entire world. I don't think I'll ever forget it. So this is the 9-to-5 exit plan. As always, any questions or comments, ping them in the comment section, let me know. I'd be more than happy to help. At the same time, you want to jump on a call with me and my team to show you exactly how we can implement this and help you achieve the freedom that you more than likely do desire. If you are watching these videos because you're fed up in your 9-to-5, I'd be more than happy to help. I'll put a link in the description and reach out. We'll go from there. I'll see you soon.